Hello, my name is Mae Whittick. Welcome to Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on the planet Earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. Listen to their stories, hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. As I record this, I am going to do my utmost not to cough and splutter all over you. This week I've found that I have the gift, maybe, of a sore throat, so it's actually forced me or required me just to take things much slower, to really reduce the amount of talking that I do, which is actually little. Apart from when I'm broadcasting here and also on the other platform. So at this point in time, I'm recording this on Thursday, the 31st of December, 2020. And what I wanted to do is just look at the year in review that we've just moved through and share with you some of the revelations that have come to me. I've would say that also this year has been a year, I would say, of the most exponential growth that I have ever experienced. And personally, that's because I've been really honest and really authentic. And that's one of the points that I've made. So they're just a few pointers that have brought themselves to the fore because of world events, external events, and the way that we choose to either react or respond to those events. It's actually shaped the way that we see the world, our role in the world, and what we're going to do in the future. And it really has caused division, frustration, anger, sorrow, fear, all of these things. And we don't know for sure where all of this is going. We have an idea of where it should go and where we want it to go. But until these things actually play out and come to their conclusion or come to a different space, we can't do anything other than keep our minds and our bodies and our spirit right and be able to ride the waves of change and revelation that has been brought to us over the past year and will be going forward. So I wrote a list of 2020 revelations, and I just want to go through those things really and just elaborate on what they brought up for me. The first one, as I may have stumbled over a moment ago, is how aware I became of fear as a control mechanism. And I think we've always been aware that fear controls the way that the world works. Never has it been so apparent than now, because they're really pushing into people's fear of dying with this the situation that surrounds the pandemic. And here we are in December, going into January, and all of this broke really to the mass in March. So we're 9 months in, and if you are a person who gets your information from mainstream sources, then unfortunately you would have had 9 months of daily programming, propaganda and fear based around what is surrounding you and what is attacking you and what is trying to take you down. And this has caused so much damage that at the moment we don't even know, we can't even imagine what the outcome of this is going to be, what the resolution to this is going to be, how we're going to heal from this. It's because when you have people in fear, it's so easy to manipulate them, and the fear of people that have the fear that people have of death has taken away from their thoughts of what it means to live, because of course the majority of us have had to put our lives to an extent in a different space and pause certain aspects of it. Our freedom or our ability to move around has been minimized out of thoughts of safety for us, and yet many people have managed to live through, but so many people are still so frightened. And the thing about being so scared is when you're in that fear space, you're not able to consider and think critically. If you've just got this overriding terror that your life is going to be taken away from you, you're not going to view the fact that you're not actually living anyway. You're not going to view the fact that things don't really add up in terms of what we're being told is a threat to us worldwide, and the reality of what we're seeing with our eyes. So when you keep people in a state of fear, you can gaslight them easily, and that's what's happening on a mass level. And then there are people who are seeing through this illusion and are not in fear. And unfortunately for them, then their lack of fear and their ability to walk out into the street, the mask is a great example, to then walk out into the street, into public areas without the mask on, brings out the fear in other people, because they're afraid of you not having fear, and they're projecting their fear onto you. And it's this cycle of fear and with people not being able to ask questions, they just are going into terror and reaction and being able to be pushed from pillar to post and being led into a space that really isn't necessarily for the greater good. My next point is humanity needs to mature, and we have allowed ourselves to stay in this this childlike space where we look to external forces to guide us into certain behaviors and to tell us what to do, pretty much. Our minds, our bodies, our souls have been, we've given the responsibility away to a greater, supposedly seemingly greater force than us, for them to guide us and tell us this is the way to go. But we do need to grow up now. We need to see that external forces, governments, are not our parents. As if we view this time that we're in now as our adolescence, as that time where you're actually starting to buck against the rules and ask questions. Why do I have to do this? It doesn't make any sense. Because there is this growing swell of people looking at things going, what you're telling me doesn't make any sense. And maybe before I would have taken everything that you told me as gospel because I needed you, or I felt that I needed you. And yet I'm feeling within myself that something needs to change now. What you're saying doesn't add up to what I'm seeing. I'm feeling something within me that is saying this is not right and I can do better. Also in terms of maturity, and when it comes to situations like world events and politics, and for the majority of people, we turn away from those things, and the only time we ever really pay any attention to that is when we're asked to vote, or when there's a big law change, or even someone dies. Is the only time we really pay any attention to policy and politics. And as a result of us keeping an eye off that ball, good people have then allowed a more malevolent agenda to take place, and plans have come into place. It's almost that we deem being spiritual or being good people, we don't take any notice of politics, and it's as a result of not taking any notice of politics that I believe that things have gone this way. But we're close to the edge, but we're not without a possibility of moving forward and doing something and rising together as people, because we need to remember that there are more of us than there are of the people that, remember, we have placed in position to govern us. And we also need to be able to mature into being able to discuss what we see around us without then just falling into personal bias or attacking people or emotional. You can't make a decision, you can't have a adult conversation or a clear and mature conversation if you're always going to flip back into your feelings being hurt all the time. It's like, this is not the time for that. These are serious times that need us to pay attention and to be able to listen to all sides of whatever argument or debate is happening. If we're just stamping down one voice, and this also goes for the fact that we're being censored and suppressed, and anybody who chooses to bring a new thought to the table is then being cut off and vilified. That's not the way that we deal with things. That's playground. If we think of sometimes the way that children can be a little bit cruel, is, it all comes down to name calling and kicking, and we need to be able to listen and hear what people are saying and think about how we can incorporate these. We can't be turning a blind eye on situations anymore, because that's where we've got to. That's why we've got to where we've got to at this point. My next point is, again, intuition is guidance, and I am of the belief that the majority of people who are on the planet right now and viewing what's happening, whether they choose to voice it or not, whether to themselves or to their loved ones or on social media or on a greater scale, at the core of it, your soul will know that something isn't right. Something isn't right. And yet we're then overriding this inner knowing by going back to fear, wanting to stay in the group, wanting to stay in the groupthink and be the popular one, be the one that everyone agrees with, because stepping out and just taking a little punt on your hunches, that's gonna mean that you need to step out of the comfort of the group that you've aligned yourself with, and it may not always be for the greater good of all, and in particular for the greater good of yourself. Another point to raise is evil exists. And I know that this can be a very triggering thought for many people, that we just think there are good things and there are bad things. There are good people and there are criminals. And what do we think of, what do we consider to be a crime? But if you start to really look beneath the surface of what is the way that the world is structured, which has been deliberately subverted from us, so we don't really know who runs the show unless you start to look. And then when you do look, it sounds so wild, it sounds so fantastic that you can't even take on board that this is true. And of course, then when you bring it to other people, you get called a conspiracy theorist and all of these things. But one thing, or one of many things that 2020 has brought forward, is the fact that these conspiracies that people have been talking about for untold amount of years, not just this year, there is a lot of weight and a lot of evidence to support what is going on, what we're experiencing right now, and where we're going and where we're being led by the governments and ruling groups play into the plans that could be considered conspiracy. Even a few months ago would sound outlandish, but here we are now. So what are we going to do about this? We need to take back our sovereignty. We need to be able to recognize that there is darker forces in the world, and know that just by looking at them and learning about them and acknowledging them, we won't be overwhelmed. People will feel like, oh, if I look there, then I'll fall down this dark hole and I won't be able, to get out of it. But we have more to us. We have more strength and resilience in our spirit than we are led to believe. We are stronger than that, and we didn't come here to fail. We have to think that we weren't born to be taken out this way. We have to keep that in mind. We have to learn what our rights are, because in a very slow turn screw way, or I'm in the UK now, so it's not even that slow anymore. Bit by bit, the rights and the freedoms that we have are being stripped away from us. And if we just acquiesce and allow them to continue for the sake of our health, it may be that we can't backpedal on these things. Again, months ago we would have thought that this kind of talk doesn't make any sense, but it's to look at 2020 and to look at what the revelations for myself, what the revelations of 2020 have been. And yes, there have been some beautiful and some light moments as well, but I'm not just going to give a love and light message, because there is darkness, and we need to be able to view and address and work together to shine the light on the darkness. Being light, or being a light worker, is not just about floating above the situation that is going on in the world. It's about doing the work. If you align yourself with the term light worker, there's a word in there, work. It's something that we have to do, and it doesn't mean that it's going to overcome you and break you down. There is more to you than if you think just having knowledge of truth is going to be your downfall. Then, not to tell you what to do, but to tell you that you need to address how you think about things. We need to start digging into our strength now. We need to start digging into our spirit, because this is a critical time for humanity. Next point, personal and collective shadows. The dark night of the soul is being experienced on all levels, personally and collectively. And the dark night of the soul, if I think about one of mine, is when you see what you've created, or what you're using to validate yourself on an external level, and suddenly it just doesn't make sense and it doesn't ring true with you anymore, and you need to crush that down and actually start to build from within to without. And that's what's happening. We're looking around at the world in a societal view, and realizing it's not working. It's not working because it's not fair. And just if some people are winning and some other people are not, that's not good. That was what we considered to be normal, and the normal life that everyone is scrabbling to get back to, which is not going to happen. It wasn't a balanced situation, so it couldn't continue. And this is the extraction of ourselves from it. This is the growing pain. This is the collective dark night of the soul. And individually, if we choose to allow ourselves to go through it, it's an existential experience. It can be a painful process, not necessarily always physically, but mentally, as your entire reality shifts around you. But on the other side of it, you can never go back. You can never go back. And that is actually in itself a beautiful thing. Going on, idolatry is dead. And I think more and more as people start to see what happens in the world, it's like, who are we allowing to tell us what to do? We've placed so much of our responsibility to tell us what's good for our body, what clothes we should wear, what music we should listen to, and so on and so forth, with people that we have no knowledge of at all, who wouldn't know us if we walked past the street. We've placed people in positions of celebration, of celebrity, who don't necessarily warrant the amount of access we give them to their lives. And by that I mean somebody who is then stepping out of the space of what we celebrate them for, a musician for instance, who is now then telling us it's a good idea to take an untested vaccine, for instance. You're crossing a line there. We celebrate you because your talent is in one space, you know, and that's not to take away from people having opinions and doing the broad strokes, but what is clear is that if people are starting to cross boundaries and force an ideal on you, we need to step back from that. I may have mentioned this in a previous episode, but when I chose to unfollow a lot of people who were considered celebrities and blue check marked folks on social media, I noticed a real change in the energy around me. And there are many reasons that which I will use for a later episode, but there didn't seem to be this draw and this pull and this hypnotism to see what they're doing and to understand, because especially if things aren't necessarily going the way that you want to in your own personal life, and you're tapping into somebody else and you're seeing how good it, you know, their kitchen's full of food, or they're on a red carpet, or they're on another holiday, or there's this, or they've got another contract, you know, you're kind of happy, but then you can't help but compare. And if you take away that person that is dangling this ideal of their life, which at the end of the day we don't 100% know that is the reality of their life because they are presented in a certain way, you can't help but compare. You can't help but look at what you're doing and where you are and think, am I measuring up? Am I at the right spot where I should be? In order to be living the life that is a successful life. So idolatry is dead. Next, doing the work pays off. So much talk about the work, and the work is addressing those unhealed parts of ourselves, those emotional catches, those traumas, those bits that we really need to investigate and transmute and rise above. Because if we're consistently led by our traumas, we're not able to respond in a way that is going to be to the best of our ability. We're going to see everything through the lens of our wounds and our victimhood. We need to be able to stand in a place of sovereignty. We need to be able to feel that we've overcome something and healed, and actually see the lesson in whatever has happened to us so that we're able to move forward. It's just, if we're consistently trying to dodge or listen out for something, we might mishear something from somebody simply because it's not because of what they said, but it's because you've got something within you that still hasn't 100% been ironed out and addressed. So it's embarking on healing and self-examination. It's going to be some of the most worthy work that you will do. It's a never-ending story. There's always another layer. There's always another aspect of yourself that you didn't see, that you needed to just investigate and allow to be released. There's a lot of forgiving that you have to do for yourself, and also those that you feel may have perpetrated some abuse or hurt against you. And it's not always as easy to just say you need to get over it and heal and forgive. But there is a way of standing firm as a result of the things that happen to you. And and know that you can be stronger for it. And as a result of healing that part of yourself, you start to then be able to offer inspiration and hope to other people. It works all the way around, and it will make your future so much better, so much brighter. You'll be able to hear people and hear what they say, what they really say, not through the lens of what you think they mean. This year I have prayed and meditated more than I think I've ever done in my entire life. And I really believe we need meditation and prayer. That's my next point. And that will give you a standing that you can just be able to close your eyes and listen to whatever it is that you tune into, your higher self, have a conversation with whatever you want to call God as. The people who have something to fall into, a space that they can go to, are the ones that are doing a lot better. This is an observation of mine. Because it's so easy to be flung left and right by the numbers and the cases and the deaths and all of the other things that are coming down the line at us that would make our lives terrible. But when you are able to take some time to meditate and pray and be still and listen, and it doesn't have to be on a mat, cross-legged with a mudra. You know, for some people, meditation is exercise. For some people, meditation is washing the dishes, walking in nature, driving in the car is a really good one as well. It's wherever you can just allow your mind to just unfold and expand and just listen out for any kind of inspiration that you may receive. My next point is authenticity is everything. This year more than ever, in my own experience, it's been really important that I have true and honest conversations, and I'm able to be true and honest to myself. And that has been triggered by the year, of course, as people start to really speak up about what they're seeing. Not everybody wants to know and hear that. And to an extent, we can be compassionate for people who don't want to hear what's happening. But then there comes a point where when we're seeking truth and others are defending a lie, there's a lack of congruency there as well. Also with me, I started to really listen out to what people were saying to me. Were they coming to me with love? Were there some barbed comments, compliments underneath that just didn't sit right with me? How did I feel after I'd had a conversation with somebody? Did I feel empowered, or did I feel that I'd had to spend my time defending myself and explaining things when I know that I was coming from a good place? And as a result of that, I've really had to trim down to the core, and it's been all good. It's been fine. Talking again about speaking up, this year so many people have come forward, whistleblowers. If we think about the situation surrounding corona, the doctors, the healthcare workers that have stepped forward and said, what we're seeing coming from this angle isn't necessarily what I understand based on my knowledge. And yet it's not being allowed to spread. It's not being allowed to be out there so people can sit and make their own decisions. It's been, again, going back to the fact you start to vilify people, you start to try and discredit them as a person, you try and find some ridiculous scandal about them in their past and put that forward as a reason why you shouldn't listen to them. Everyone's got skeletons in their closets. That doesn't mean that they don't know right from wrong, or if they see something that they want to come forward and alert their fellow man. And if I'm trying to think where I heard this yesterday, but it was someone saying that if ever you press play on something, or you're reading something and it's telling you at the top of it that this is what you need to know, then exercise extreme caution. Why is that what you need to know? Why can't it be something that you can take on board and then go and look at 5 or 6 other things and try and work out where the truth is for yourself? Again, this is us still being in that childlike state and allowing us to be dictated to and parented when we all have our own minds. And it's difficult because we are not necessarily applauded for critical thinking and questioning, but the time has come for us to do that in order for us to move forward and to allow people to have differing points of view, and to try and be compassionate to people that are still defending one narrative in order for that to exist in their minds. I truly don't understand the thought process behind that, but that's something that I have to work for myself and be compassionate about. Solitude is a gift. I am the world's prize winner introvert, probably not, but I just revel in my own space, and of course there's been so much of it available for us this year if you choose, and in my moments of solitude are the loudest moments for me, because I hear so much. I'm connected so much to just really feeling out into what is surrounding me. What am I hearing from other people? What am I hearing from my higher self or my intuition or whatever that voice is? And yet so many people are so scared of being on their own. And there's a difference between lonely and being alone. And I think that's the frightening part. We're surrounded by 24/7. I mean, we can layer it upon layer. There is so much information out there that even if we had all our devices on playing different things 24/7, we would never be able to get to the root and to hear everything that there is to hear. So when we then turn everything off and then we're in silence, it's unnerving for people who've never really known what silence and solitude is, the gift that it is, because they have been fed an ideal of what they should be and which way they should go, and external voices have driven the course of their life. But if we're all able to find the strength and the gift and the beauty that comes from solitude, we will be better people when we come back together in community, because we will be bringing our own voice to the table as opposed to trying to fit into this group ideal, which is never ideal because we're all individual. Nature is medicine. What can we say? Being in nature is what can be more beautiful than that? This morning, even with my sore, rough throat, I went out for a walk and it was very frosty, but the lake in the pond was frozen over, the birds were frozen, there was like a white dusting everywhere, and it was just to be out there and in that space and breathing, and just looking around and having appreciation for what we're surrounded by. We seem to be forgetting so much of what nature has as a gift for us. Just sitting in nature and feeling the power of nature, grounding, putting your feet on the ground and feeling the power of the earth charge through your body, looking up at the sky and marveling at the clouds and the sun and the moon and the stars and everything that goes through nature. Also, bringing nature into our bodies and feeding ourselves with natural foods, feeding our bodies with natural remedies. These things have gone on and been around for millennia, and it's only really recently in the past century or so that our eye has taken itself away from nature but into pharmaceuticals, which now we can see are really being driven to us. But we're awakening to the fact that this is not necessarily for our benefit, and understanding that nature has for us the best gift. We are natural beings. Nature is for us. We need connection. We need a community connection. And again, it's going back to finding people who are committed to truth. This is what's important for me. People who are working constantly on the betterment of their lives and the future of humanity. I long to be surrounded by like-minded souls. It's very hard for me to constantly be thinking about what I can and cannot say and curbing my thoughts and my words. I'm open to having discussion and hearing a differing point of view, but I want to be able to open my mouth without feeling that somebody is going to get offended or scared. Or let us open ourselves up, because this is how we evolved. This is how we will evolve. And in hearing other people, this is how we learn. This is how we expand. This is what 2020 can give to us, is not being just curbing and keeping our mouth shut just to maintain the peace. It's not a peace. It's not a peaceful peace. It's a quiet, but it's an easy quiet, because more and more now people are realizing that if we're not able to express ourselves in an authentic way, then what is the point of having those connections if we can't be true and people are not being true with us? It's not a time for us to hide. Final point, or final points: gratitude for everything. So despite 2020, as I said at the beginning, this has been the most transformative year for me in terms of who I am as a person. Even on a week-on-week, day-on-day basis, the more that I'm able to find who I am, really, and be able to speak about what I believe in and what I want to do, it's the most empowered I've ever felt in my life. In doing that, it's meant that I've forged connections that would never have happened had 2020 not played out in the way that it has. It's opened up opportunity. Even though I've not travelled, it's opened up opportunity for me to actually expand my voice even more. So not just working here on this platform, but also on other platforms with people who are committed to really finding out what's happening in the world and doing our part to be in service to humanity going forward. And the final point I want to end on is forgiveness. And there are differing views on what forgiveness is and the energy and how it leaves us. But I mean this in the way that it's non-attachment forgiveness, if that makes sense. Forgiveness in that as we go forward and as we learn more about the truths of the world and the reality that we have been presented with, and who's been for us, who's been fighting for us, and who hasn't. We need to be able, after the initial revelation and shock and hurt and anger, to be able to move to a space of forgiveness, in that we recognize that as souls we all come to this planet and we play a role, and the role that some souls have to play isn't necessarily the fruitiest role. It's a role that can cause a lot of hurt and a lot of pain, but in that soul being that persona, it's allowed us to see the truth of what's happening in the world and for us to wake up. So thank you. And I just want to close with wishing you the best for 2021. As I said before, this year has been a revelation of so many things. The world has shifted on its axis in a way that none of us could have ever really imagined. And my wish for you is that you have strength and that you maintain hope and connection and love in your heart, and know that as long as we seek truth and seek to view all of these things happening for us and find the lesson, which is a hard thing to say when it feels hard, but it's the only way through. The only way through is to ask what is being taught to you at that moment so that you don't get overcome by whatever comes to you. So thank you for listening, and if you want to find out more about me, carolmaewhittick.com is my website, carolmaewhittick.com. Same on Facebook, and Kazmic, Cazmick on Instagram, Parler and Twitter. Best wishes for 2021. Thank you.